Early voting begins and Ohio shows support for Israel. Welcome to Columbus on the Record. Israel and the Gaza Strip are a half a world away, and Ohio lawmakers have nothing to do with foreign policy. But officials are doing what they can to show solidarity with Israel in its war with Hamas. Just about every elected official publicly condemned Hamas in the invasion and showed support for Israel. The Ohio House and Senate passed bipartisan, near unanimous resolutions. Ohio Treasurer Robert Sprague increased the state's borrowing from Israel, and U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown has called on the Biden administration to refreeze $6 billion in Iranian assets because of that country's ties to Hamas. You know, Herb Asher, when something horrific and surprising happens, it's not a surprise to have like your mayor or your governor show support for that situation, the folks affected by it. Why do they do that?
Because when an event is so egregious, so horrible, there's an expectation that, in fact, our elected officials, practically at all levels, should weigh in. And so what's really happened here, and of course they were really cued by Joe Biden, who really did probably one of his best speeches, and he really nailed it in terms of saying this was just morally unacceptable. And of course, you know, Israel, of course, gets involved in, you know, our domestic politics and all of that, but I think it's the appropriate first response to condemn the atrocities that happen. Then you move on, and you're already having some people say, but will the Israeli response be counterproductive? What will happen in Gaza? What about Bernie Sanders has already raised that. But I think the appropriate first response is to really have this almost unanimous condemnation. Now, we had a couple of, at the national level, a couple of missteps, and I think Ronna McDaniel, but within the first 24 hours, was criticizing Joe Biden. I'm thinking, you know, you're clueless.
Well, also we knew it was bad at the beginning, but it really took a couple of days for the details to come out on how the Hamas invaders shot people at the music festival and went into families' homes. Gene, it tends to be Republicans who jump on Israel's support first, more so than Democrats, right?
Yes, but I want to build upon something that Herb mentioned, is that, so to a certain degree, the president is kind of like this compassion commander-in-chief, and I think that's what you're seeing here to a certain degree also. And why Republicans more so than Democrats? I can speculate till the cows come home, but I'm not really sure myself, though, as to why. But yeah, we tend to do that.
Robert Sprague, the treasurer, increased the state's borrowing. The state was already borrowing a lot of money from Israel, increased that. So that's a tangible move.
Yeah, and he did a forum at the Columbus Metropolitan Club a couple weeks ago, and I was questioning him at that about specifically this and why the state was involved in buying Israel-backed bonds. This is not a new thing. Yeah. This goes back decades, and so this is just another way of showing support. And I think that this is more of the same of what we've seen, including the resolution or including the discussions we've heard from lawmakers about this.
Darrell, I mean, Democrats tend to show historically more sympathy for the Palestinian cause than Republicans in general, and that has put some liberals in a tougher spot this time.
Yeah, and that's a general statement. Now, the other day when they had speeches on the floor in support of this resolution, and they were all in support of it. You know, Casey Weinstein, a representative from Northern Ohio, who is Jewish, you know, gave a very moving account. Several talked about they'd just been on an American-Israeli delegation to that land just last summer. So some of those scenes they were showing on TV, they'd just been in.
Sherrod Brown, by asking the Biden administration to refreeze the $6 billion, part of the negotiations for hostages and things like that. Right. It also put some daylight between him and Joe Biden in case, you know, Joe Biden's not the most popular Democrat, perhaps running for president next year.
Well, supposedly in back channels that is happening, that they've engaged with Qatar, who's holding the purse strings in this case, if you will, and say, yeah, that money we were going to free up for, and it was earmarked for humanitarian aid, which is all well and good, but of course, if you get resources for humanitarian aid, then that frees up the money you were using for humanitarian aid for bad stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. But I think the key point was the one you made, like overwhelmingly support for Israel and condemnation. And you may find a few people, whether it's Rand Paul on the Republican side or some other people, the Squad on the Democratic side, who might want to weigh in right now with some criticisms, but that's not the initial response. And I think and it's not going to be a likely response. I mean, the support for Israel and the support for refueling and refurbishing and adding to their military stockpiles, that's going to happen. And as soon as we get a speaker.
All right. GOP infighting continues in Washington and in Columbus. As of Friday afternoon, the U.S. House is still without a speaker. The two leading candidates earlier in the week, Steve Scalise of Louisiana and Ohio's Jim Jordan, have not been able to get enough votes of their fellow Republicans. Jordan continues to push for the job. Politico reports Jordan told his colleagues that America wants me, unquote. Here in Columbus, House Republicans are fighting each other in court. 3 GOP state reps are suing House Speaker Jason Stephens over who should manage the House Republicans' campaign fund. Stephens says as Speaker, he controls the fund. The reps say State Rep Derek Merrin controls the fund because he is the elected chair of the caucus. Stephens beat Merrin, if you recall, for the Speaker's post after getting support from Democrats. Gene Krebs, what's going on? Why is there similarities between what's going on in the House in Washington and the House in Ohio? Why can't you all get along?
Yes, there's a great similarity. And every time you ask me a really tough question, I retreat into a book. The book I'm going to recommend here is Peter Turchin's book, Secular Cycles, because what he goes into, anytime you have an oversupply of the ruling elite, they either do a civil war where they shoot each other, they do an external war where they decide to conquer France, or in this case, Michigan, or the Black Death visits. And he's able to trace this through. But what we're seeing here is a classic case of there's too many Republicans and we can't all become governor next cycle in 2026 or Secretary of State or whatever it is. So all this infighting is going on.
That's in Ohio.
That's in Ohio.
Yep.
And there, and I have to be, as you guys all know, I'm a ranked choice voting advocate. But what you're seeing there is the epitome of what happens when you have a first past the post partisan primary, where it always comes down to being the most aggressive, bomb throwing, shade throwing, mud throwing person in that campaign moves you up the food chain. And now they're doing it at the congressional level.
Herb, Jim Jordan is no stranger to bomb throwing.
Yes.
Does he have a legitimate shot at becoming the Speaker of the House?
I can't imagine that. There has to be 15, 20, 30, 50 Republicans that will say hell no. And the reason they'll say hell no is that it's not good for the Republican Party. It's not good for the U.S. House. The Speaker is both the head of his party and also the head of the chamber. Jim Jordan has demonstrated he has no respect for the chamber. He's really, well, in the old days, John Boehner referred to him as a terrorist, and John Boehner was actually quite correct. So whether it's the FBI, the CIA, the House Rules and Procedures, he's not the person to give an image of the Republican Party as ready to govern. Beyond that, if he were to become Speaker or a very serious candidate, he then will have a kind of scrutiny, which we're seeing a little bit about this now, going back to the Dr. Strauss case.
He was a wrestling coach.
Yeah, and he was an assistant wrestling coach, and presumably according to the AP, there have been at least 5 wrestlers who said they told Jordan about it and he did nothing about it. Well, actually that fits a pattern. He doesn't listen to whistleblowers. And in fact, he did that with General Vindman and all of that. So he's and as a wrestler, and I think we were talking about this before the show, he really is a loner. Wrestlers they succeed when they win a championship. And even though the team might win the Big Ten, it's individual accomplishments.
Jordan denies that he knew about the Strauss allegations and denied that he had failed to report them. Darrell, look at congressional races next year, competitive ones here in Ohio, down in Cincinnati, maybe up in Toledo with Marcy Kaptur. If Jordan is the Speaker, he replaces Nancy Pelosi in those negative ads that Democrats will run against Republicans.
No question. Those of us in Ohio who've grown up with Jim Jordan in a political sense, I think a lot of people are like Herb. It's like, really? But I think they're really desperate in Washington right now. They know how this makes them look in D.C. And now we have a huge international incident. We're going to be, hey, we kind of need a speaker because we want to get some aid to Israel. Is Jim Jordan, is he going to be like a desperation choice? Now, I should say, he has new opposition as of this moment, a Georgia congressman named Austin Scott. But Jordan's been endorsed by the chair of the NRCC, the Main Street Caucus, which is a middle-of-the-road group, has agreed to give Jordan's nomination speech for this. Kevin McCarthy, the former speaker, also supposedly supporting him. So, weird thing. We're in weird times.
We shall see. Turning to the House, Karen, does Derek Merrin and his allies have a case in who should control the campaign fund for re-electing or electing GOP members to the House?
I think that remains to be seen. I mean, this is coming out of an agreement that was signed between all the parties in April that supposedly settled the question of who actually controlled the Ohio House campaign account. And Merrin and Ron Ferguson and Phil Plummer, the three who are suing Jason Stephens, say that immediately after signing that agreement, Stephens basically backed out of the deal and didn't perform the way that they wanted him to. So that's going to be the question. And I just think it's interesting. This apparently started about a month ago when Ron Ferguson's mother, Lisa, who is a Jefferson County judge, started acting as the attorney for this group, telling Stephens that this is a problem and we have concerns here. So what this all comes down to, of course, is next year and the possibility of Derek Merrin controlling the account and running candidates against Stephens candidates in the primary or vice versa.
So they use the House GOP campaign fund in primaries, one Republican against another. That seems to be unfair. It seems to be putting the thumb. Why not let the Republicans duke it out and then use the campaign fund to help them against Democrats, of course?
Well, that's why the control over that account is so critical. And Derek Merrin has been saying since the beginning of the year, when he got more Republican votes than Jason Stephens did, that he's the leader of the Republican caucus. But of course, Jason Stephens is the speaker because he got Republican votes and all 32 Democratic votes.
What brings them together, Gene, here and in Washington?
Nothing.
Republicans.
Nothing.
Defeat?
Well, possibly defeat. Once again, boy, you ask me the worst questions. I gotta tell you, I don't get paid enough to do this thing. Look, how it's going to play out here is there's going to be going through the courts. There's no other way to handle it. Back in the 90s, when I was there, we never had enough money to play in primaries. We were just concentrating on having enough money for the general. And the fact that they have so much money that they're able to play in primaries, I'm going, why are we, well, it goes back to Peter Turchin's book. Why are we killing our own?
Well, it's because gerrymandering, the general doesn't matter anymore in a lot of these districts.
That's right. You know, I think one of the questions will at some point at the national level, U.S. House Democrats quietly or not so quietly get involved in the selection of the Speaker of the House, who will be a Republican. And then how will the Republican Party or the hardliners handle the fact that a Democrat helped elect their Speaker?
Just look to Ohio. That's what happened here.
Yeah, exactly.
Twice.
They won't handle it well. That's one thing I can answer.
Well, early voting has begun for November's election. The first thing you noticed outside the Franklin County Board of Election facility was a lack of lines that were seen on the first day of voting for August's special election. But that was deceiving because more people actually voted on day one this week than on day one of early voting in August. The difference, the Board of Elections had more voting machines inside, so there was no wait. Suffice it to say, voters are engaged to vote on abortion rights and other issues in November. And so is Governor DeWine. He and his wife, Fran, are featured in the latest No on Issue 1 ad. They look directly into the camera and say Issue 1 is not right for Ohio. They say parents would lose rights and abortion would be allowed at any time during a pregnancy. Legal experts say parental rights would not automatically go away, and under the amendment, later term abortions would only be allowed if the health or life of the woman is in danger, which has been the law for 50 years and would be allowed under the so-called heartbeat law signed by Governor DeWine. Karen Castler, first to the voter enthusiasm. There was a lot of buzz in August. I don't get the same buzz this time around.
I think it's still early. We're still recovering from August, which was a sudden election. Nobody expected it, especially when there was a law that was passed that eliminated most August special elections. So it was kind of something that was a lot of attention at first, and we're still kind of getting over that, I think. But we're starting to see the ads. The buys are really starting to come from the no side now. The yes side and the no side both are starting to put their ads on the air. So I think we're going to see more of this. I'd be watching, during football games and times when they expect a lot of Ohioans to be tuned in, to be looking at this. Though I have to wonder, on these two specific issues, abortion and legalized marijuana, a lot of people have made up their minds. How many people are there out there to really convince?
That's my question to you, Gene. Another easy one for you. Mike DeWine says that voters in Ohio are confused by this issue. Are they confused, or is he trying to confuse them?
It's actually more complex than even that. For one thing, I've talked to some, I call them marginal pro-life people. And I go, so how are you going to, and having a conversation about abortion is very difficult to have, but been very tentative in having conversations. What they've told me is that they are pro-life, but they're going to vote yes on this because they do not trust the current Republican General Assembly to pass anything reasonable in its wake. And but mixed messages is that there's also the pro-issue one. So far, that campaign, I would give it a C minus.
Why?
No presence, no yard signs do not vote, but they give people permission to vote, and they are a way to indicate momentum.
Do you see a lot more no's out in rural Ohio? Or did you see any no
10 to 1.
Okay. Herb, now, the governor is popular. He is an elder statesman in Ohio. He makes a good presence on television. Could he hold some sway for some wavering folks who are
I think
on the middle on
I
this?
think relatively little. And remember, there's a wing of the party, of the Republican Party, conservatives, who really still have a deep dislike for him. So I'm not sure how he's going to carry the day, although maybe they're going to vote against the reproductive rights anyway. But look, I think the only way that reproductive rights amendment can lose is if you scare enough people. And I didn't see the governor's ad, but some of the things in that ad are trying to scare people about, parents are going to lose their rights, are going to have late-term abortions, the very things you mentioned. That's basically not true.
But he's very measured in his approach.
He's got a
there.
very calm, but
Karen.
But I say that the whole claim about the loss of parental rights, that's something that Attorney General Dave Yost, who is an opponent of Issue 1, his office did a legal analysis that said specifically that parental consent is not addressed in the amendment. And so that's something that Republicans are talking about as being something that will happen if Issue 1 passes. Well, the Attorney General says, no, that's not addressed here.
Purely hypothetical.
Yes.
yeah.
There are other issues on the ballot this time around. Marijuana, of course, school board, city council, school levies, mayors. So how does that change the calculus on the issue 1, the abortion rights campaign?
Yeah, well, this is an off-year election, or some would put it an off year. But yeah, you have two issues on the ballot that are going to decide the fate of matters that have just been controversial for decades. This whole abortion thing. Are we going to allow it in our Constitution in Ohio? Marijuana. Are we going to say recreational marijuana is legal? Those are just two monster issues. I want to point out a little maneuver the Ohio Senate did this week. They passed resolutions, a little bit like the Israeli resolutions, but condemning Issue 1. In other words, they're against abortion rights being in the Constitution. Well, big whoop, you might say. But supposedly, and it's muddy on the legal analysis, and maybe Gene and Karen can help me out here. Once they've now passed a state resolution. Now it becomes a state issue. Before, it was a citizens-led issue that got it on the ballot. Yeah. They couldn't, under their official auspices, use their position, their money, what have you, to oppose it. But now, it's transmogrified into, it's now a state issue. We can do all of those things. And what I'm really waiting for is, speaking of coffers, will the Senate Republican campaign caucus start kicking in some money? It's awful late in the day, but I think this shows maybe they realize that. Yeah, I think all the proponents of Issue 1 have to do is sort of hold serve here. There's got to be an amazing comeback here, and I think it's got to be portrayed as not just abortion, yes, abortion, no, but extreme versus extreme.
Yeah. All right, let's get to our last topic. If you go to an early voting center, you may be asked to sign a petition to put a redistricting reform plan on next year's ballot. The Ohio Ballot Board this week gave the okay to supporters of the Independent Redistricting Commission to gather signatures. The board unanimously ruled the proposed amendment contains only one subject. Now supporters must gather the valid signatures of 414,000 registered voters. Darrell, it's no small thing that this was approved at the very start of early voting, because that makes signature collection, valid signature collection, that much easier.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's very key. And to have that, well, it's not a year. They got to have those legitimate signatures by next July to get on, again, not this November, but next November's ballot.
And they can go to people who are showing up at these voting places are registered voters. You sign them up. The success rate is very high.
Yeah, and then hopefully they don't move between now and July. But yeah, this banks all those signatures.
Yeah.
This really helps them out, no question.
Karen.
When you think about how the Reproductive Rights and Abortion Access Amendment got their signatures in what, 2-3 months? They've got a lot more time, and there is something playing out in real life, essentially, there has been in the redistricting proposal and the panel that's been going forward. So I think there's an energy here for the redistricting amendment for next year, though a lot of people may be thinking, didn't we already settle this? Well, but that's what people are also thinking about issue one. I think there's a lot of confusion about what issue one is among people who are not specifically in one camp or the other.
Gene, what is the prospects of this? Should it get on the ballot next year?
Everybody says it's going to pass 55, 57. You know, you got to remember that when the current situation, the current plan we're in now, went on the ballot, there was no opposition, and it got 70%. And they're going, oh, look, this is no problem, it's got 70%. You didn't have any money spent against this. And the question isn't so much about, will my Republican friends and former colleagues spend their campaign money on this, but can they convince some of their groups that they work closely with to spend money on this?
Herb, you've been through this battle before, many years ago.
Many times.
This is different this time, do you think?
I think it is, although the proponents of this change or anti-gerrymandering, they need to have a very simple message, and it basically has to be take the politicians out of drawing their own districts, because the actual process is going to be so complicated. So I know what the opponents are going to talk about. Oh my God, look at this, who's eligible to, in fact, be on the commission, and how do you get selected? Now, it's so complicated. And the other side basically has to say, get them out of making their own districts.
That's why I think there's a bit of a genius, if you will, the simplicity of their name, citizens, not politicians. Because that is the central messaging that they can beat that home. But I agree with Gene, unopposed, but you've got scars from those battles where they weren't opposed. And things like this where you have non-elected officials, well, that's made to be an evil thing. Unelected bureaucrats will be drawing the congressional and state district lines, and this will be dark, brooding Halloween music. You can do it now.
Aren't boards of elections they're not elected? I mean, Franklin Rose breaks the ties, but boards of elections are not elected posts. So.
Well, but they don't draw district lines.
Well, they decide elections, in theory.
But one of the key things when you're digging a hole is to put down the shovel. And right now, my people, Republicans, are digging themselves a hole, both at the State House and nationally.
There is a lawsuit, though, Karen. There's ACLU, League of Women Voters, sued the last map. Times moving forward. Do we expect a Supreme Court ruling before they have to settle on these districts?
I'm not certain. I don't know. And it'll be interesting to see what the Ohio Supreme Court would do anyway. But we can't have the maps without lawsuits, apparently.
Yeah, maybe we'll finally settle
There's actually 3 lawsuits challenging. But, there is something different here in that we have a bipartisan 7-0 plan, which I think is going to be a really strong argument for those justices who many would say are probably predisposed to okay this anyhow.
And it will be an argument used in the campaign. Should they get the signatures and should they get on the ballot? It's time now for our final off-the-record parting shots. And Gene Krebs, we will start with you.
Well, as you all know, I'm an advocate for ranked choice voting, and the recent announcement that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to run for president, if he makes a presence in 5 or 6 states, 20% of Republicans believe in conspiracy theories and the vaccine is actually cause of death. And so he will pull votes away from Trump, and the Republicans need to get with this ranked choice stuff quickly.
He's running as an independent. Herb.
Yeah.
If by the middle of next week the Republicans have still not picked a speaker, it'll become more evident that Democrats are going to be involved in the selection of the next speaker. And either that will so panic the Republicans to say, we better find somebody that we will, or there'll be a group of Republicans saying, yep, if we have to do that, we'll do that.
All right, Daryl.
We talked about the resolution to support Israel, condemn Hamas. One person voted against it, and she's a Columbus State representative, the youngest person and the only Somali in there. And she talked about this vote does not imply I stand and pray Jewish lives are lost. I cannot stand with a resolution that ignores the cost and plight of the Palestinian people. And she was immediately accused of lying by a Republican state rep. Another one talked about her standing up for Hamas on the end. And the non-officials were just very ugly. So,
Yeah. Karen.
In odd year elections, I don't say off year, odd year elections, over the last 7 ones we've had, the average turnout has been 37%. So if there's more than 37%, and August beat that, August was 38.5%, so that could be a record turnout for an odd year election.
Interesting to watch. Yeah, 2 statewide issues on this odd year election should drive it. If you want information about this year's election, check out the WOSU voter guide. It's at WOSU.org. That is our show. Continue the conversation online, Facebook, and watch us anytime at WOSU.org/COTR. For our crew and our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.